We have a massive Cowboys move coming, as after already getting 2 contracts done, a new report has the Cowboys making a record-setting deal with one of their offensive linemen. We'll get you all the latest on the Cowboys right now on Cowboys Digest. Welcome, everybody. I'm Jace Andrews. I appreciate you tuning in to today's show. Got lots to discuss. Yes, the Cowboys fall in Week 1 to the Philadelphia Eagles. Couple of positives from that game. However, a big positive was the offensive line. It looks like one of those members is going to get locked up here pretty soon. Before that, though, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We are 130 away from 6.5 thousand. I'd really appreciate if we can get there before this upcoming game against the New York Giants, upcoming next Sunday. That gives us about a week and a day to get that done. Only 130 away. I trust Cowboys Nation has my back, so go down there and hit that subscribe button. This offseason, the Cowboys were able to accomplish at least 3 contracts. I know there's only 2 guys on the screen here, but these are the 2 main ones in DaRon and Jake Ferguson, locking down the tight end Ferguson for 4 years, locking down Bland for 4 years. They also got a fullback in there, and Hunter Luepke got him on an extra extension as well for a couple years. So they've been able to make some moves. None of those were Micah Parsons. Instead, they decided to trade him, which, whatever, we're gone from that now. It's happened, and we have to just move on. The Cowboys defense, it looked okay. I mean, Kenny Clark definitely was a positive piece, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about a potential new contract for the Dallas Cowboys, as it seems like they are working on a record-setting deal with a star player. DaRon Bland getting locked up, Jake Ferguson getting locked up, Hunter Luepke getting locked up. Now it's time for somebody else, and maybe somebody that is more deserving than DaRon or Ferguson in that light. We're going to go here to a report from Randy Gerzai of Dallas Cowboys Sports Illustrated. And he starts by saying this, quote, "One of the more positive takeaways from this past performance against the Eagles was the offensive line. Not only did Dak Prescott go through the game without being sacked, they opened enough holes for the running backs to rip off 119 yards on 22 carries, which is about 5.4 yards per attempt. The offensive line was very, very talented in game number 1 against the Philadelphia Eagles. Tyler Booker looked great in his first NFL action. Tyler Guyton over there on the left side, he smacked a man if y'all saw that video, but for him not practicing kind of for a lot of training camp, having that injury that was thought to be an ACL ended up being a bone fracture. It worked out fine. He was very good in the opening game, but the main guy that you're always going to look to is Tyler Smith, and it seems as though he's going to get his payday here soon. We got a report from Clarence Hill Jr. on X, or I call it Twitter. I think that's always what it'll be, but either way, he has this on the Twitter. "The Cowboys are still working on what would likely be a record-setting contract for left guard Tyler Smith, per a source." This has been talked about for a while. Right now, he is playing on his 5th-year option. The talk all along was for him to play on this for now, but the contract was in the works. When you think about the future of this Dallas Cowboys offensive line, you lose Zach Martin. You want kind of that stable source. Smith is that guy. I believe he kind of will be that anchoring point to this offensive line for hopefully the next, he's in year 4 or 5, so hopefully the next, half decade here, he can be that guy that you can trust and hold on to on the Dallas Cowboys offensive line. And there's a couple of big things to note about this contract. You mentioned record-setting deal. So what exactly is a record-setting deal? What does it look like? Well, we first have to look at the top guard contracts across the National Football League. Now, most recently, it was Trey Smith who broke the record, getting $23.5 million. Before that, it was Landon Dickerson who got $21 million. So you have to expect that he'll probably get more than those two, especially when you look behind him and you think Chris Lindstrom, Robert Hunt, Quentin Nelson, and Aaron Banks. He is definitely on the level of Trey Smith and Landon Dickerson. I don't think he goes to the Chris Lindstrom or Robert Hunt level. He's definitely upper tier, and Smith and Dickerson are kind of more toward that nation in that area than I think people than what Smith would be. So in that likelihood, he's going to surpass probably the $23.5 million. Randy Gerzai, a Dallas Cowboys SI, kind of having another report here saying, quote, "Tyler Smith is likely to surpass that average of $23.5 million with any deal he signs. The 4th-year Tulsa product has developed into one of the more consistent guards in the entire NFL. He's excellent in pass protection and an absolute mauler in the run game," end quote. Now, although the PFF grades, officially aren't right there. If you look at his PFF grade throughout the entire season last year, you know that he is one of the better guards in the National Football League, especially in the run blocking. 63.5 grade on the PFF last year, ranking him second among all of the left guards, third out of fourth in pass blocking, overall 62.5. So he is definitely one of the top guys when it comes to pass blocking, run blocking, and he's an anchoring point for this defense. It's a very good point to kind of look at and see that you understand when he's on the field versus when he's off the field. It's a very different offensive line and a very different way they were able to protect Dak Prescott. With that being said, we have to talk about the money. $23.5 million is a good chunk of change. Now, this is this year's cap table. If the extension would go through, it depends on how it's set up, whether or not it's going to start this year, whether or not it's going to start next year. I would have to expect with him playing on the fifth-year option, it might be similar to the Ferguson contract when with a majority of the money going towards the next 3-4 years or whatever it ends up being in terms of how long that contract is, and just a little bit being taken off this cap space table right here. But either way, you've got $38 million to spend, and why not spend it on a guy who is a very good portion of your offensive line? If you look at the pass protection and the ability of this offensive line against the Philadelphia Eagles, they were able to really shut them down. Now, there is a little bit of a point to kind of look at it because in some ways they got some help from a little bit of a dumb move, let's say, from one of the Eagles' defensive linemen, as Jalen Carter got ejected early. Dalton Wasserman mentioned this on his PFF report, saying, quote, "Things got off to an ominous start when the Eagles' best defensive lineman, Jalen Carter, was ejected before playing a single snap. The ripple effect of that was the Mora Ojum and Bryce Young played for more snaps than expected. Both struggled as they had sub-60 PFF overall grades. Carter's absence was a huge factor in Philadelphia's failure to sack Dak Prescott. And while I do agree with that, if Carter is on the field, it's a very different defensive line for that Philadelphia Eagles squadron. However, at the same time, you have to give credit where credit is due. This Philadelphia Eagles defense last year was one of the better defenses in the NFL. They brought a lot of guys back. Now, their secondary and their linebackers are more the strong suit when you take out Carter from the defensive line. But at the same time, you have to say, okay, Dak didn't get sacked once. And, I mean, if you were on the stream, if you got to watch the game along with us, which you didn't, go check it out. We're going to have hopefully more of those this season. But either way, it's a big point that when Dak Prescott is on the field, this Cowboys team is different. The mantra, the vibes, everything about this team is very, very different. And in reality, the Cowboys really should have won that game had I almost called him Des Bryant, but CeeDee Lamb, actually, the other 88, had he caught a couple of balls. And, yesterday, he was out catching balls and trying to really hone in because he was frustrated with himself. And, I would be too, but it's a tough thing. And then one last thing I want to mention here on today's show. Don't have any graphics or anything of this, but just want to kind of throw this in there as the last little tidbit. Dak Prescott. There was a video that was released. If you missed the game, you kind of watched. And Jalen Carter, as I just mentioned, got ejected for spitting on Dak Prescott. Well, Dak Prescott spat toward the ground of Jalen Carter. Now, there is talk of Carter getting a suspension. With that, there are other people saying that Dak Prescott should get a suspension. I have to think, given that Dak spat at the ground first and then Carter was a response, they'll both be off clean. But I do want to just throw it out there that the NFL, especially after tomorrow's games, they're probably more worried about tomorrow. I wouldn't be shocked if there was a suspension thrown out. I don't think it would go for Dak Prescott. I think in all reality, they let both sides go and say, okay, that was, if Dak spat toward him, whatever, it was retaliation, just let them both play on. It was an interesting play as well. But either way, for our Cowboys question of the day, talking about Tyler Smith, I want you to name kind of an off-brand one, but I want to really test your Cowboys knowledge here. I want you to name your favorite ever Cowboys offensive lineman. Now, I'm 23 years old, so I have to go with Zach Martin, but I want you to go down there and let me know your favorite Cowboys offensive lineman of all time. We had a lot of talk and discussions on this in the stream, so I'm curious what y'all's is. We appreciate you, though, and we'll see you next time here on Cowboys Digest. Until next time, peace out.